And I am Zachary Walker. And I got to know quite a few of you yesterday, and it was wonderful. And one of the things that that is interesting is we're at a mobile technology conference, and I realized the irony in the fact that I'm not using any technology for the keynote because of a couple of things. Through some of our conversations yesterday, you guys are the tech leaders, right? We talked about that.
Yes.
You're the tech leaders. One of the big things that I had some individual conferences, well, how do I get my administration on board? How do I get my colleagues on board? How do I get other people to kind of adopt where I'm at now and moving forward and all those things? So one of the things I want to talk about this morning is this is not going to be big on inspiration. I mean, I want you to be inspired, but I think you're inspired because you're here, right? But we're going to ask I just want to ask you 5 questions. 3 of them are for you to ask your administration, and 2 of them are for you to ask yourself. But one of the reasons that I don't use technology is because I want to make it clear that I am not a tech geek. And one of the things that I think I find a lot of times with people that I work with is that, in educational technology and instructional technology, they grew up as tech geeks, right? They're the kids that were programming at age 8 and took their Nintendo apart and figured it out. That's not where I came from. I come from a different angle. I've only ever been interested in good teaching and performance. I am not the biggest techie. But what I've recognized over the last 5 years is that I don't think that I can be a great teacher without using technology. I don't think that my learners can get everything that they can without using technology. I think it just offers too much for us to ignore. And so that is why I chose today to not use technology, and this is because I wanted to make sure that it's clear that this is about performance. This is about just good teaching and learning. It's not about the tools, it's always about the teaching. And I think that's really important. So here's the first question that I think that you can ask your faculty, your staff, your administration, your district, whatever. The first question is, how committed are we to being great? And I know that that's a simple question, but I think we really have to, how committed are we to being great? A great school, a great district, a great classroom. And here's why. I have a small confession to make. I live in Singapore now, but I'm a huge fan of So You Think You Can Dance. Right? It's fantastic, apparently, the one other person who watches it in here. It's a great show, because the people can actually dance. But a couple of years ago, Rob Marshall, who's a producer and director, was on the show, and he was talking to the dancers, and he said, one of the things that I love when I watch dance is those dancers who dance with abandon. They jump as high as they can, they leap as far as they can, they know that they might fall, they know that their partner might not catch them, they know that they might get hurt, but they're so committed to that dance, to that movement, that they do it anyway. And sometimes I wonder, are we committed enough to being great that we will teach with abandon? Do we teach with such abandon that we're going to fall sometimes, and we're going to get bruised, and we might look silly in front of our students, we might look silly in front of our colleagues? Does our district support teaching with abandon? Because the thing about teaching with abandon, right, is just like if you're dancing with abandon, it takes what I like to call foolish courage. It takes that kind of courage that people are looking at you going, well, that's not going to work, or that's silly, or why are you doing that? But if we're really committed to teaching with abandon, and in our districts, if our districts are really committed to being great, you got to be willing to have foolish courage. You got to be willing to go places that you might not be willing to go, just like if you're an athlete or a dancer or anything else. And I think that we really have to consider that, because one of the things when I was coaching at the high school level, and I was teaching and coaching at the high school level, one of the things I always used to tell my players is that if you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough. Because if you don't fail, that means you're not pushing your limits, right? So one of the questions I would ask your administrators, your district leaders, your colleagues that aren't willing to go there, why not? Are you scared to fail? Are you really willing to be great? Because being great requires some failure, right? And the big thing I think that is great about this is that when we fail, we have the opportunity to bounce back up. And when we do that, we carry ourselves with greatness. And here's the thing, when we fail and we just bounce back up, and like we talked about yesterday, well, that didn't work, let's try something else. Or we'll smile about it and say, well, we'll do it again tomorrow. Or what other tools can we use? What are we teaching our students? Resilience, persistence. And what are more important than that? But if we're not willing to get out there and fail, we don't ever model those skills for our students. So if we're truly committed to being a great school, a great district, a great classroom teacher, we have to be willing, and I feel, as you can tell, very, very strongly about this, we have to be willing to teach with abandon and have sometimes foolish courage. It just requires us to step out there and try to do things anyway. One of the things that IDEO has a sign on their wall that says, fail often, succeed sooner. And I love that. Fail often, succeed sooner. And I think that that's so important for us to remember, because it's not only having our students do it, it's us doing it. And then how we respond to that failure when it happens is the real lesson for our students. That's true whether we're using technology or just trying a new strategy in class, right? So that's the first question. How committed are we to being great? Are we committed enough to teach with abandon and have foolish courage? The second question that we want to ask our districts and our leaders and our colleagues, are we allowing genius in the classroom? And again, sounds like a simple question, but genius isn't always just getting an A, right? Because I mean, I could tell you about the 11-year-old who I just read about, who developed by himself, using rubber bands and paper clips, a baby-saving device for cars that actually saves babies' lives. Have you heard of Kane's Arcade? Kane is a 14-year-old in LA who developed a whole arcade out of paper boxes from his father's auto parts store. We could talk about Kane. We could talk about the 14-year-old who last week developed and programmed and created this whole video game and won awards for it because it's an actual video game like the old Tetris. Did it herself at 14 years old. Here's the thing, those are great, but those kids, that genius exists in all of our classrooms, right? What I'm more interested in is the adults and the teachers that allowed that to happen. The parent of Kane who didn't say, what are you doing with all those boxes? Come on, put those away, go read a book. Or the parent that didn't say, you know what, put those rubber bands away. Come on, that's just silly. Let's go do something. That's not part of the curriculum, right? So are we allowing that kind of genius to happen in our classroom? And the thing that's so fun about it is that one of the things that's really interesting is a lot of times that genius, it comes from the students we least expect it from. It's that student with the disability who maybe doesn't read quite as well, but all of a sudden you give him an alternative way to express his learning and you're blown away by what shows up, right? So are we allowing the kind of genius in our classrooms that takes kids to the next level? And one of the things that we have to be able to do, if we would truly want to allow genius, is do less, right? We have to do less so that they do more. Because we know that engagement leads to learning, and as I mentioned before, 90% of the classrooms that I walk into around the world, who's the most engaged person? The teacher. Well, it's great that we're learning more, but unfortunately that's not necessarily our jobs. I mean, that's one of the benefits of our jobs is we constantly are learning. But it's about the students learning. And so we have to make sure that the students are engaged. And part of the way that we make sure that the students are engaged, and this is a big one when we talk about technology, we have to engage them as the co-teacher. Students have to be co-teachers in our class. Because every single one of us, just like every single one of our kids, has what I like to call funds of knowledge, right? We all have these funds of knowledge. But traditionally, teachers were like ATMs. We were just giving out the funds. But now, the iPad is a fund of knowledge. The phone is a fund of knowledge. And by gosh, that kid is certainly a fund of knowledge. So why are we not taking advantage of all those funds to learn as much as we possibly can in the classroom? And I think we need to ask our districts, our administrators who aren't allowing technology or who are very strict with it, why would we not access all of those funds of knowledge for learning? That doesn't seem to make really any sense, right? And I'll end with this question with the quote. Thomas Cruther says that a good teacher is one who makes themselves progressively unnecessary. I love that phrase. A good teacher makes themselves progressively unnecessary. But if we're at the center of everything in our classroom and we don't start doing less and we don't start engaging our class as co-teachers, how are we ever becoming progressively unnecessary? Right? How are they ever allowed to show their genius? So the third question for your districts, and I have a whole series of versus questions that I love to ask when I work with teachers. And the big thing is I love to ask myself when I teach my classes. I'm only going to ask you one today. We all have things that we have to do, right? I pick our kids up at soccer practice, plan tomorrow's lesson. I got to call my friend and have coffee with them. I got to buy groceries this week. We have those lists called to-do lists. So when we're talking about technology, what's on your to-stop list? What do you have to stop doing? Because here's the thing, right? Sometimes we clutch what we do so tightly to our chest because it's what we're comfortable doing, it's what we've always done, that we don't actually embrace what we can do. And that's not saying what we're clutching isn't good, but by golly, if embracing something new is better, why wouldn't we try to do that? So for me, as I try to constantly think about this, one of the things, and I'm very good at it now, but I was not when I started, one of the things I had to stop doing was my need for control. I needed to be in control, and I had to stop that. And I actually had to put a sign on my little, on my little monitor, stop being in control. I actually had to make a list of things that I had to stop, and that was one of them. I had to give up that control. And I think that this is something that we really have to focus on, because one of the things about stopping things is I think we had this conversation, I had this conversation yesterday with one of the participants, but this is great that they can create this amazing project and everything, but what about the standards? Like, are we holding them to high standards? My thing, and this is, I think we have to talk to teachers about this, and we have to talk to administrators, our standards should be higher than ever. Because we have more ways to learn than ever. We have more ways to show that learning than ever. But here's the thing, we have to be uncommonly flexible about how they meet those standards. We have to be uncommonly flexible in our classrooms about how we allow them to meet our high standards. Our standards have to be as high as they've ever been, if not higher. But what we do have to do is we have to allow them to come to those standards in different ways. Does that make sense? So what do you have to stop doing to allow them to actually meet a different goal? So now I'm going to get to the hard part, because these are personal questions. And don't answer them out loud, okay? But I really want you to think about this. Would you want to work with you? Would you want to work with you? Who's a tech leader here? Everybody, right? We established that. We're all tech leaders. We're all pushing for technology. We're all trying our hardest. Would you want to work with you, though? Because here's the thing. You can have the best intentions. Think about your colleagues. You know who they are. And the reason I ask this is based on 3 pieces of actual research, right? The first piece of research is I read a long time ago. Children laugh on average 400 times a day. Children laugh on average 400 times a day. Adults, 15 times a day. Children laugh on average 400 times a day, and we as adults, 15 times a day. Why? Where does that go, right? The second question is even probably more concerning for us as teachers. Forbes just reported on a study. They surveyed industries across the U.S., and they came up with the happiest professions. Teaching, the 3rd unhappiest profession. This is one of those things that, this hurts. This does hurt. Because how can we work with people who laugh 400 times a day and we're still unhappy? And I get that we have pressures from every which way, right? We have pressures from parents, from administrators, from our kids, from standards, from testing. We have all these. Why can't we be happy anyway? Because if we want to push things and we want to get things and we want to allow genius, we have to be leaders that people want to work with. And here's the thing. This is the 3rd piece of research. And this is neuroscience, so I don't know neuroscience. I just know how to talk about it a little bit. When you laugh, right? When you laugh, the same chemicals and neuroreceptors and all that stuff are the same ones that you use when you learn. So the ha-ha actually leads to the aha. So why aren't we laughing more? I look around the room, and I work, and again, I'm very lucky. I've worked in 30 cities in 4 countries in the last year. And I walk around teachers all, you know what I mean? And you walk into a school, and you can tell who I want to work with just by your affect. So would you want to work with you? And if you sit there and go, you know what, I probably could be happier, then what are you going to do about it? Right? How are you going to make yourself happier? And I'll give you one small example. The school I work at in Singapore, the administrative staff and I were always the first ones there. And every day we come in and we don't say good morning, we don't say hi, we say happy Monday, or happy Tuesday, or happy whatever day it is. And it's silly, and it's kind of stupid, but we laugh because it's different, right? And we just say happy day, whatever the day is. What are you doing daily to make yourself smile? What are you doing daily to make yourself someone that other people look at and say, I want to work with her even though I know she lives on the edge a little bit. I know that she takes chances. I know that sometimes she feels, I want to work with her. And if we're serious about getting our administrators converted, if we're serious about getting our districts converted to the 21st century, so to speak, we have to be people that we would want to work with. And the last thing I'll say on that is you've got 2 days to start practicing. Because, there's 7 days in a week and some day ain't one of them. So start being happy now, right? Start being happy right now. Start smiling right now. And let's take that through the next couple of days. Because it is a habit. It's a habit to be happy just like it's a habit to decide you're going to be unhappy. So picking those two, let's be happy. Because that way people will want to work with us. Last question before I close. Whose Mrs. Owens are you? Whose Mrs. Owens are you? And the reason I ask that is Miss Owens was my 3rd grade teacher. I don't remember my kindergarten teacher. I don't remember my 1st grade teacher. I don't remember my 2nd grade teacher. I remember my 4th grade teacher, Kurt Kearns, because he was a family friend. I don't remember my 5th grade teacher, but I remember Mrs. Owens. And this is going to be hard to believe, I was a little bit of an ornery kid. I didn't always follow the rules. I wasn't bad, but teachers knew who I was. You know what I mean? Even at the elementary level, I was that kid. The teachers always had an eye on me, right? And the first and only time I ever got straight A's was in Miss Owens' class. And partly because I was a little bit scared of her. And she was about this tall and this tall probably, I guess. I was a little bit scared of her. I was definitely intrigued by her. But most of all, I knew I respected her. I knew that when I walked into that classroom, like she was going to teach with abandon. Like I walked into her classroom and I was like, whoa, what are we going to do today? Right? It was exciting. Every time you tell your story, you have a teacher somewhere along the line, right? We all have those teachers. In 20 years, whose story are you going to be in? Are you going to have someone that's going to mention you? Whose Miss Owens are you going to be? And why? Is it because when they come into your class, their feet hit your room and it's like, oh boy, here we go today? Or is it going to be because, oh, well, I don't even really. Whose story are you going to be in? So as I close, because this is going to be awesome over the next couple of days. There's going to be so much cool stuff to get into. I want to tell one quick final story. In January, I was at a school in Birmingham, Alabama. I know we got some Birmingham people here. And they call themselves the best middle school in America. And the thing is, they carry themselves with they act like it every day. It's the expectation of the administration. The teachers walk around like it. They call themselves the best middle school in America. And one of the things about them is I came in and I did a half a day with the whole group, and we were talking about mobile learning and technology and all these strategies and ideas. And then in the afternoon, we did little content areas, math teachers, and then language arts teachers, and then science teachers. So we got to work with all the teachers the whole day. About a week later, I'm back, and I get an email from the assistant principal, Andy. And Andy said to me, hey, thank you so much for coming. It's been amazing. You know what I mean? Like, you can already see a change. Teachers are doing stuff. It's really exciting. And I wrote him back, and I said, Andy, I'm like, listen, that was my pleasure. Like, the teachers inspired me. I got so many great ideas. You know what I mean? Like, thank you. And this is what he said, and this is his whole email. His whole email response was, our teachers are great. Sometimes they just need permission to be awesome. Are you allowing yourself to be awesome? Are you giving yourself permission to be awesome? Because One of the things that I think we have to do over the next 2 days, right? Give yourself permission to do less. Give yourself permission to teach with abandon and to have some foolish courage. Give yourself permission, and this is the big one, to fail. Give yourself permission to fail. When you fail, carry yourself with greatness anyway. And mostly, the last thing is, over the next 2 days and into the new school year, give yourself permission to be awesome. Yes? Thank you.